Hi friends, this is fifth part in haloalkanes. Today we shall see the third chemical property, nucleophilic substitution reactions. In our earlier classes we have seen two other chemical properties. They were elimination reactions and reaction with metals. In this session we shall study nucleophilic substitution reactions. In all haloalkanes, this part is common. We have already seen this in nature of carbon and halogen bond, that this halogen bears partial negative charge and carbon bears partial positive charge. This negative charge on halogen labels this as a nucleophile because it is negatively charged, and the positive charge on carbon attracts other nucleophiles. So if there is any nucleophile which is stronger than halogen, or in other words halides, then the incoming nucleophile will replace this existing halogen, thereby undergoing nucleophilic substitution reaction. Stronger the incoming group or stronger the incoming nucleophile and weaker the leaving group, easier is the nucleophilic substitution reaction. Means the more easy this halogen goes away and more stronger if nucleophile approaches the carbon atom, then the nucleophilic substitution reactions will be easier. So let us see. The first nucleophilic substitution reaction is reaction with aqueous KOH or aqueous NaOH, sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide. In this, if any haloalkane is reacted with aqueous KOH, aqueous potassium hydroxide or aqueous sodium hydroxide, then only substitution part takes place. This X goes with K and what remains is ROH. An alcohol is obtained. Whenever haloalkanes react with aqueous KOH, aqueous potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide, corresponding alcohols are obtained. You can try the same reaction with sodium hydroxide also. The second reaction is reaction with alcoholic potassium cyanide. In the nucleophilic substitution reactions, there are about 14 to 15 reactions. All of them are similar, so you can go through them through your textbooks also. Only for the sake of understanding, I shall be dealing here only 3 to 4 reactions. So with the alcoholic KCl, whenever a haloalkane reacts with potassium cyanide in alcoholic medium, then what happens? Guess the nucleophile here. Halogen goes. In the other potassium cyanide, the nucleophile is exactly cyanide. Therefore, the product will be alkane nitriles. Alkane nitriles plus KX. Alkane nitriles are also called as alkyl cyanides. Alkyl cyanides. If the same reaction is done with alcoholic silver cyanide, then the approach of incoming nucleophile will be slightly different. So these two reactions should not be confused with each other. Reaction with AgCN and reaction with KCN. If the same haloalkane is treated with alcoholic AgCN, then the reaction is RNC plus AgX. How is CN and NC different from each other? These are nucleophiles, but the mode of attachment is different. If the attachment is through carbon, then the product obtained will be a cyanide. Okay. If the mode of attachment is through nitrogen, then they are called isocyanides. They are called isocyanides. So whenever haloalkanes react with alcoholic silver cyanide, you will get isocyanides or isonitriles. If they react with alcoholic potassium cyanide, then they will give you alkane nitriles or alkyl cyanides. Nucleophiles which contain more than one attaching site, more than one site through which the reaction can occur, they are known as ambident nucleophiles. They are called ambident nucleophiles. One example of ambident nucleophile is cyanides, because it has two attaching sites, one through carbon and the other time through nitrogen. Some other examples are thiocyanate, then nitro group, etc. The fourth reaction, reaction with silver salts of fatty acids. Reactions with silver salts of fatty acids. You know what a fatty acid is? A fatty acid is the one which is aliphatic monocarboxylic acid containing 12 to 18 carbon atoms. Means it should contain 12 to 18 carbon atoms and only one carboxyl group in it. So if any silver salt of fatty acid is reacted with a haloalkane, if it is reacted with a haloalkane, I can write Rx or XR. It is done only for the sake of convenience. Then I will get RCOOR plus AgX. I will end up with esters. Whenever haloalkanes react with silver salts of fatty acids, you will get esters. There are other examples of also in the textbook. You can go through them. I will solve only these four. Then the next topic is types of nucleophilic substitution reactions. There are two types of nucleophilic substitution reactions that you will study in this year. Only two types. The first type is SN1 and the second type is SN2. SN1 stands for unimolecular nucleophilic substitution reactions. Unimolecular nucleophilic substitution reactions. Similarly, SN2 means bimolecular nucleophilic substitution reactions. Let us study the first one. To understand unimolecular reactions or bimolecular reactions, you need to have some basic idea about chemical kinetics chapter. If that has not been dealt with, then for the time being, you assume that whatever is being told, that is true, because it is. So here and there I will try to explain the parts that come from chemical kinetics chapter. Meanwhile, we shall see how this reaction proceeds. So unimolecular nucleophilic substitution reaction is the one which obeys first order kinetics. When I say first order kinetics, this means the rate of such reaction will depend on the molar concentration of only one reactant. In a chemical reaction, if there are many reactants, out of all of those, if the rate depends only on one reactant species, then we say it is unimolecular nucleophilic substitution reaction. What is this reaction? It is the reaction wherein the rate depends on the molar concentration of only one reactant species. For this, the best example is alkaline hydrolysis of tertiary butyl bromide. How does this reaction happen? So tertiary butyl bromide means this compound, tertiary butyl bromide. When tertiary butyl bromide is heated with potassium hydroxide, aqueous potassium hydroxide, because it is alkaline hydrolysis, you need to use any alkali. Potassium hydroxide is a strong base and a very good polar solvent also. So if this reaction takes place, the product is CH3, 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 OH. Nucleophile gets substituted to give tertiary butyl alcohol. This is an example of unimolecular nucleophilic substitution reaction. Now exactly how this reaction takes place, we shall study its mechanism. In the mechanism, the reaction takes place in two steps. The first step is formation of carbocation. Formation of carbocation. It can be otherwise called as ionization of tertiary butyl bromide. In this step, this tertiary butyl bromide undergoes ionization. It undergoes ionization means it breaks to give you tertiary butyl carbocation and bromide ion. A molecule splits to give you tertiary butyl carbocation and bromide ion. This tertiary butyl carbocation is a stable ion. According to kinetics, this step is slow step, and the slow step is also called as rate determining step. This means it is this step which determines the overall speed of the reaction or overall rate of the reaction. Now, in the second step, attack of nucleophile takes place. Which nucleophile should be attacking now to this carbocation? Exactly, it is OH minus. So when OH minus attacks, you see this carbocation, tertiary butyl carbocation, gets attacked by a nucleophile to give you the main product CH3, 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 OH. It is tertiary butyl alcohol. So there are only two steps in this mechanism. Now out of these two steps, how do you identify which step determines the rate of reaction? So there is a law called law of mass action. You might have studied this law in your first year also. If not, I'll tell you the statement what this law says. According to law of mass action, the rate of any chemical reaction depends on the slowest step. So by knowledge, by studies, we have found out that the first step is slow step. So the law says the rate should be depending on the slow step only. So between these two steps, this is slow step. According to law of mass action, the rate of a chemical reaction depends on the slow step and is directly proportional to the number of reactants that take part in the slow step. So in this slow step, you will be able to see only this one reactant. There is only one reactant present. Therefore, order is 1 and molecularity is also 1. Order is 1, molecularity is 1. Hence the name unimolecular nucleophilic substitution reaction. If you apply the same law of mass action to the second step, it is not applicable because the second step is a fast step. Some of you might have got doubt, sir, how do you say this step is slow and the second step is fast? At this PU level, at this second year level, you will not be able to understand how to distinguish whether a reaction is slow or fast. Unless you study kinetics at a higher level, only then you will be able to understand which step will be the slow, which one will be the fast. For time being, I shall remind you that whenever ionization takes place, whenever a molecule breaks, that step will be sometimes slower, and the formation of a molecule is always a faster step. So out of these two steps, if you apply law of mass action to the second step, it is not applicable because it is a fast step. Therefore, the rate of a reaction does not depend on the nucleophile. It does not depend on the concentration of tertiary butyl carbocation also. It depends only on the molar concentration of alkyl halide, that is tertiary butyl bromide. Hence the name unimolecular nucleophilic substitution reaction. this reaction, SN1 reaction or else SN2 reaction, is a fixed question in your second year theory annual examination. So practice this question repeatedly. Now let us see SN2. SN2 stands for a bimolecular nucleophilic substitution reaction. Now for this we have alkaline hydrolysis of methyl bromide or methyl chloride. Choose any one. There are a few points to be remembered while you are practicing SN1 and SN2. That SN1 reaction involves formation of a carbocation, and for this reason polar solvents are compulsory. Unless a polar solvent is taken, you cannot break the bond between carbon and halogen present in tertiary butyl bromide, because that bond is a stronger one. To break that, you need compulsorily polar solvent, whereas polar solvents presence is not compulsory in SN2 reaction. Only for the sake of avoiding confusion, I shall be using the same solvent KOH. Methyl chloride means CH3Cl. If it is reacted with KOH under same aqueous conditions and heated, then you are likely to get CH3OH, methanol and KCl. Only to avoid confusion, I have taken the same solvent. Even if this solvent is not there, you have taken a solvent of less polarity, then also SN2 reaction can take place. But for SN1 reaction, compulsorily you need a highly polar solvent. Understood? Now let us see the mechanism. In the mechanism part, this methyl chloride, which is a three-dimensional molecule, it gets attacked by the nucleophile directly or directly. Now breaking of this bond C and X, carbon halogen bond, and formation of carbon and OH bond both take place simultaneously. In SN1 reaction there were two steps, but in SN2 mechanism there is only one step. It is only a one-step mechanism reaction. So this OH minus should attack methyl chloride. Now this OH minus, if it wants to attack carbon at this place, it cannot do so, because there is already chlorine whose nucleophile nature and OH minus nucleophile nature are almost same. So when an existing nucleophile is already present, then OH minus cannot attack carbon from a place where this chlorine is present. So what should it do? It attacks carbon from backside. This is very important, because in the earlier SN1 reaction, the incoming nucleophile OH minus can attack tertiary butyl carbon from any side because it was a planar molecule. Here methyl chloride is not a planar molecule. This molecule being non-planar, therefore OH cannot attack carbon from the front side where chlorine is present. It should attack carbon from the back side. Now if it attacks carbon from the back side, carbon for a moment temporarily becomes pentavalent. How does this happen? See, this was already chlorine bond. A new bond gets formed with OH minus also. You already have one hydrogen here and one hydrogen here. So for a moment carbon becomes pentavalent. Because carbon cannot tolerate 5 bonds, we call this as transitionary state. We call this as transitionary state or intermediate state, which is unstable. Because it is unstable, it exists only for a fraction of time. We represent this under square bracket. So we do not consider this as a step. Both carry partial negative charge, but slightly its nucleophile quantity is more compared to chlorine. Therefore you will get a product wherein you will have inverted configuration, means because OH is attached from the backside, we call that as inverted configuration. Product is same, you will get methyl alcohol but with inversion. The same did not take place in SN1 reaction, their retention took place. This means wherever Cl was present, wherever halogen was present, in its place OH came. But here OH came at a place backside from where halogen was attached. So inversion in configuration takes place in SN2. Now from here till here there is only one step. This is not considered as a single step, means from here to here one step, from here to here another step. No, from here till here there is only one step. That one step itself is a slow step. So the slow step is also called rate determining step. So according to law of mass action, what does it say? If you apply law of mass action to the slow step, then the rate of such chemical reactions will depend on the molar concentration of the reactants present. There are two reactants present, one is alkyl halide and the other is nucleophile. Since there are two reactants, therefore order is 2, molecularity is 2, hence the name bimolecular nucleophilic substitution reaction. Now let us see 2 or 3 differences, 2 or 3 striking differences. In SN1 reaction there were 2 steps, in SN2 reaction there is only 1 step. We call such reactions as concerted reactions, those which take place in only 1 step. Then in SN1 reaction rate depends only on one reactant, in SN2 rate depends on molar concentration of 2 reactants. Their order and molecularity are 1, here order and molecularity are 2. Presence of polar solvent is compulsory in SN1 reaction, whereas it is not so compulsory in SN2 reaction. Formation of a carbocation takes place in SN1 reaction, no carbocation formation, no ionization takes place in SN2 reaction. Inversion in configuration may or may not take place in SN1 reaction, inversion compulsorily takes place in SN2 reaction. So these are some of the differences you need to remember between SN1 and SN2. So today we have studied nucleophilic substitution reactions, under that unimolecular and bimolecular nucleophilic substitution reactions and their mechanisms also. In the coming classes we shall see the stereochemical aspects of nucleophilic substitution reactions. When I say stereochemical, means there are some concepts like inversion, retention, and there are some more concepts that I have not used now. You need to understand how they take place and they will become an important part in understanding the further concepts. For this much was for this class. More topic in the next session. Thank you.